Details in the death of a West Jordan mother found at the bottom of a stairway with her two young children nearby.
News specialist Shara Park joining us now live from that neighborhood. And Shara, arresting documents paint a very troubling picture of what may have unfolded in that home.
Yeah, Mike and Ashley.
On the morning of January 13, 2025, in West Jordan, Utah, a suburb of Salt Lake City, 39-year-old nurse and mother of three, Autumn Mercado, was discovered lifeless at the base of her home's staircase. The discovery was made by police officers conducting a welfare check after a concerned coworker reported that Autumn had failed to show up for work, a rare occurrence for the dedicated nurse. Upon arrival, officers were met by Autumn's husband, 47-year-old Carlos Mercado, who claimed he was about to call the police. Inside the residence, authorities found Autumn's body at the bottom of the stairs, exhibiting significant bruising and signs of rigor mortis. Tragically, the couple's two young children, aged 1 and 4, were found nearby, naked and within view of their deceased mother. Carlos informed the officers that he believed Autumn had passed out due to vertigo and suffered a fatal fall. Instead of seeking immediate medical assistance, he attempted to wake her, and upon failing to do so, he covered her with a blanket. He then summoned a rideshare service to purchase more beer, leaving the children alone in the home with their deceased mother. Upon his return, Carlos claimed he was preparing to contact the authorities when they arrived. Neighbors and community members were left in shock and disbelief. The unsettling circumstances surrounding Autumn's death and Carlos's actions have prompted a thorough investigation by the West Jordan Police Department. As of January 16, 2025, Carlos Mercado has been arrested on multiple charges, including child abandonment and failure to report a dead body, which is considered desecration of a dead body. However, he has not been formally charged in connection with Autumn's death, as authorities continue to investigate the incident. This tragic event has left the community grappling with grief and unanswered questions, as they await further developments in the case. Autumn Mercado was the kind of person who left an impression on everyone she met. At just 39 years old, she had already built a life defined by her kindness, dedication, and resilience. She was a nurse, and to her colleagues, she wasn't just a coworker, she was a source of strength. Many described her as the heart of the hospital, always ready to lend an ear or offer help, no matter how long her shift had been. Autumn's passion for caregiving wasn't limited to her job. At home, she was a mother to 3 children, balancing her professional life with the demands of raising a family. Friends often marveled at her ability to do it all, work long hours at the hospital, and still make time for her kids. Her eldest, a teenager navigating high school, looked up to her as a role model. Her younger two, just 4 and 1 years old, were still in that magical phase of childhood where their mother was their entire world. Despite the demands of her career and family, Autumn rarely let the stress show. She found joy in the small things, weekend trips to the park, baking cookies with her kids, or simply curling up with a good book after a long day. Her friends recall her laughter, a sound that could fill a room, and her unwavering ability to lift others up even when she had every reason to feel exhausted herself. But like many families, life wasn't always picture-perfect for the Mercados. Autumn's husband, Carlos Mercado, was a complicated figure. At 47 years old, he was almost a decade older than Autumn. Those who knew him described him as charismatic but sometimes unreliable. Carlos worked sporadically, taking on odd jobs but never settling into a stable career. The couple's relationship had its ups and downs. Friends and neighbors noted moments of tension between the two, arguments over finances, parenting decisions, and Carlos's occasional absences. While Autumn was seen as the glue holding the family together, Carlos was often perceived as distant, more focused on his own needs than the needs of his family. The Mercado family lived in a modest home in West Jordan, Utah, a suburb of Salt Lake City. The neighborhood was a quiet one, filled with families who often gathered for barbecues or holiday celebrations. To the outside world, the Mercados seemed like just another family trying to navigate the challenges of modern life. But behind closed doors, things weren't always as they seemed. Autumn's sister later revealed that Autumn had confided in her about feeling overwhelmed. Balancing her career, her children, and the challenges in her marriage was taking its toll. She mentioned that Carlos's behavior was becoming increasingly erratic, his mood swings, his tendency to drink more than usual, and his apparent indifference to the pressures she was facing. Despite these challenges, Autumn stayed. Whether out of love, a sense of duty to her children, or hope that things could improve, she remained committed to her family. Neighbors recall seeing her outside with her kids, her smile masking whatever struggles she might have been facing internally. They remember Carlos, too, often on his own, sometimes in the yard, sometimes heading off to places unknown. In the days leading up to that tragic January morning, there were no outward signs of the storm brewing within the Mercado household. To the world, Autumn Mercado was a woman who had everything together. But as we begin to piece together the events of that fateful day, we're reminded that appearances can be deceiving, and the weight of a life lived behind closed doors often tells a far more complex story. It was the morning of January 15, 2025, a day that started like any other for most people in the quiet suburb of West Jordan, Utah. But for 39-year-old Autumn Mercado, it would be her last. The events leading up to her tragic death unfolded in a manner that left her family, her friends, and her entire community reeling with shock and heartbreak. Autumn's day began as it often did, juggling the demands of motherhood and preparing to head out to work as a nurse. She was known for her punctuality and reliability, but on this particular day, Autumn didn't show up for her shift. Concerned, one of her coworkers reached out to check on her. When there was no response, the coworker alerted local authorities, prompting a welfare check. Before the police arrived, what exactly transpired inside the Mercado home remains unclear. What we do know comes from the account of Carlos Mercado, Autumn's husband, and the details uncovered during the investigation. Carlos later claimed that he found Autumn at the bottom of their staircase. According to him, she had suffered a fall, presumably caused by a bout of vertigo, something she occasionally experienced. But instead of immediately calling for help or checking her vital signs, Carlos said he simply stood there for a moment, processing what he was seeing. He described her lying still, unresponsive. Her position at the base of the stairs seemed unnatural, almost staged, with bruises visible on her body. But rather than attempting CPR or dialing 911, Carlos's next actions would raise questions that remain unanswered to this day. Carlos took a blanket from another room and carefully covered Autumn's body. He later told investigators that he wasn't sure what to do, that he was in shock. But what he did next shocked even seasoned law enforcement officers. Instead of staying with Autumn or notifying emergency services, Carlos left the house. His two youngest children, just 1 and 4 years old, were still inside, mere feet from their mother's lifeless body. Without a second thought, Carlos summoned a rideshare service to take him to a nearby convenience store. Security footage from that morning captured Carlos walking into the store, purchasing a 6-pack of beer, and leaving just as casually as he arrived. Witnesses at a nearby bar later recalled seeing him there, drinking alone. The details of what he did during the hours he spent away from home remain murky, but what is clear is that Carlos made no attempt to notify anyone about Autumn's condition during that time. His children were left unattended in the house with their deceased mother, an act that investigators would later label as grossly negligent and deeply troubling. When Carlos eventually returned home, he claimed he was preparing to call the authorities when officers conducting the welfare check knocked on the door. The responding officers were greeted by Carlos, who appeared calm, even nonchalant, as he led them into the house. Inside, the scene was grim. Autumn's body lay at the base of the staircase, partially covered by the blanket Carlos had placed over her. Officers immediately noted signs that contradicted Carlos's story. The bruising on her body didn't seem consistent with a simple fall. There were other subtle details, the positioning of her limbs, the lack of visible blood or other evidence of a traumatic fall, that raised suspicions. What struck the officers most, however, was the state of the children. The two little ones were found naked and confused, wandering around the house. They were alone with no explanation or comfort, left to grapple with an unimaginable situation. Carlos's demeanor during the police encounter added another layer of unease. He answered their questions but offered little emotion. His explanations were vague, and his account of events felt rehearsed. When asked why he didn't call for help, His response was that he was overwhelmed and didn't know what to do. The more the investigators pressed, the more inconsistencies began to emerge. Surveillance footage from the bar showed Carlos behaving normally, engaging with staff, sipping his drinks, and showing no visible signs of distress. It painted a starkly different picture from the one Carlos had tried to convey. As police processed the scene and began piecing together the timeline, one question loomed large. If Carlos truly believed Autumn's death was an accident, why hadn't he acted sooner? Why had he left the house, leaving his children alone, and chosen instead to buy beer and spend time at a bar? These questions marked the beginning of an investigation that would uncover more than anyone could have anticipated. But in those initial hours, all anyone could focus on was the heartbreaking reality of a young mother's life cut short, her children left to face a future without her, and a husband whose actions defied explanation. This was not just the story of a tragic accident. It was the start of a deeper mystery, one that would send ripples through the West Jordan community and leave everyone who knew Autumn searching for answers. The tragic death of 39-year-old Autumn Mercado on January 13, 2025, in West Jordan, Utah, prompted a thorough investigation by local authorities. The sequence of events began when Autumn's concerned coworker reported her absence from work, noting a history of domestic violence, which led to a welfare check at her residence. Upon arrival, officers were met by Carlos Mercado, Autumn's husband, who appeared to be under the influence of alcohol.
An incident where we have a deceased individual, it's a tragic incident for us.
Police say they found 39-year-old Autumn Mercado dead inside her home. Officers say she had signs.
Authorities are meticulously examining all possibilities, aiming to piece together the events that led to Autumn's tragic death. The community remains hopeful for clarity and justice, honoring Autumn's memory as a devoted mother and compassionate nurse. Following the discovery of Autumn's body, her husband, Carlos Mercado, was arrested and booked into the Salt Lake County Jail on charges including failure to report a death and 2 counts of child abandonment. However, according to recent booking records, Carlos has since been released from custody and, as of now, has not been formally charged in connection with Autumn's death. The couple's 3 children are at the heart of this heartbreaking situation. While specific details regarding their current guardianship have not been publicly disclosed, family members have expressed deep concern for their well-being. Autumn's sister, Summer Christensen, has been vocal about the family's commitment to supporting and caring for the children during this challenging time. In the wake of Autumn's passing, the community has rallied to honor her memory. Vigils have been held, and her colleagues in the healthcare field have shared heartfelt tributes, remembering her as a dedicated nurse who touched countless lives. A GoFundMe campaign has been established to assist with funeral expenses and provide support for her children, reflecting the community's desire to offer tangible assistance. The West Jordan Police Department continues to investigate the circumstances surrounding Autumn's death. Authorities are meticulously reviewing evidence, including autopsy results and forensic analyses, to determine the exact cause of death. As of now, no official court dates have been announced, but the community remains vigilant, awaiting further developments and hoping for clarity and justice in this case. As we reflect on this tragedy, our thoughts are with Autumn's family, especially her children, as they navigate the profound loss of a mother, sister, and cherished community member. As we bring this story to a close, one thing remains clear. Autumn Mercado's life was one of love and purpose, tragically cut short. Her family, her children, and her community are left with unanswered questions and unimaginable grief. And while the investigation continues, the pursuit of justice for Autumn is far from over. Now we turn to you. What are your thoughts on this heartbreaking case? Do you believe there's more to uncover, or does the evidence already tell the story? Have we, as a society, done enough to protect individuals in situations like this? Share your theories, your reflections, or even your own experiences in the comments below. Let's continue the conversation together. If this case has moved you, if you want to stay updated on Autumn Mercado's story and hear more in-depth true crime investigations, we invite you to join our community, click subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a chapter. Your voice matters, and together, we can keep the memory of those like Autumn alive and ensure their stories are told. Thank you for watching and for taking a moment to remember Autumn Mercado. a mother, a sister, a nurse, and a woman whose legacy deserves justice. Until next time, take care of one another.